Good morning, world. Welcome to another episode of Xendependently Minded. If you are a new or returning listener, I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you're interested in more combat sports news, analysis, predictions, and discussions like the content here on Xendependently Minded, stay tuned because it's only going to get better from here. And be a good friend, girlfriend, husband, brother, sister, niece, nephew, uncle, aunt, whatever, and share Xendependently Minded with everybody who loves combat sports, because it's only the best combat sports podcast out there. So on this episode, there's just some news broken on UFC 251 recently. Yesterday morning for me because I'm here in Germany. The news broke that Gilbert Burns tested positive for the coronavirus, and this was kind of shocking to a lot of people. For me, I wasn't too shocked because I did see a couple hours before that it was reported that one of his cornermen tested positive. So I thought it was only a matter of time before he tested positive and he's yanked from the fight. And that's what happened yesterday. Unfortunately for him, I felt he deserved a title shot. In the past, I really didn't feel like he deserved a title shot because he hadn't beat too many top contenders. I mean, he beat Damian Maia, who's always going to be a good threat to anybody because of his jiu-jitsu, and he beat Tyron Woodley, but Tyron Woodley looked like he didn't know what he was doing in the octagon. But I talked about that. I covered that in another podcast. But this guy's fought twice in the no crowd era of the UFC right now. He doesn't back down from a challenge, and he's been grinding. He's been really grinding. He's really improved his striking, his ground game, his jiu-jitsu game has always been good. We saw that against Damian Maia. I didn't really give him a chance to beat Kamaru Usman, but you don't want anybody to go through any kind of illness, whether the coronavirus is harmful to him or not. It's not something that you want to see anybody go through. Anything that takes away from someone's livelihood, it's always gonna suck. You never want to hope or pray for that on anybody, even your worst enemy. So Kamaru Usman doesn't have an opponent, and what I had read yesterday, so I assumed that this fight was off because I read somewhere, I think it was on Twitter, I think Ariel Helwani or Brett Okamoto, someone, or maybe it was just some random person that I believed, said that Kamaru Usman heard the news, didn't get on the flight to Abu Dhabi, which is a big deal. You don't have a Kamaru Usman there, you basically got to find two opponents, and you might as well just stick with the co-main event, which is Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski for the featherweight championship. So this left the UFC in an interesting spot because in order to get an opponent for Kamaru Usman, you're going to need to find someone, obviously, that is available to make weight, available to get tested for the coronavirus, can get his cornermen tested, and then sent out to Abu Dhabi. And then also they have to adjust to the time difference in Abu Dhabi in a week, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with jet lag, but it's not an easy thing to do, especially if you're training, trying to cut weight. This is something that's really hard to do. And something that I kind of thought about, and also Ariel Helwani just talked about it on his show, was having them fight maybe at the Apex Arena or fighting somewhere else, because the fight can be aired and broadcasted on pay-per-view no matter where it's at. It doesn't have to be in Abu Dhabi. It doesn't have to be in Fight Island. It could be anywhere. So that could solve that issue. I know the two main guys that wanted to fight Kamaru Usman were, or at least they claimed, was Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal. And Colby Covington, I think, was the one who tweeted first, but the UFC wasn't interested. They didn't say anything to him. And then they pursued Jorge Masvidal, and there's currently negotiations going on right now. Jorge got tested. I saw his manager put on his Instagram that he got tested. He tested negative, and then he also he took a video or a picture of him on the phone saying negotiation. So he's negotiating with the UFC. So if this fight does go down, it's going to be pretty exciting because this is a fight that everybody wants to see. I think this is the most anticipated. This is one of the most anticipated, if not the most anticipated, welterweight matchup that the UFC could book as of right now. Besides that, I think the next most anticipated fight would be Jorge Masvidal, and Colby Covington. But there's a lot of good fights that they could make in the welterweight division. Don't get me wrong, but this is definitely the best bet because UFC 251 is already pretty stacked. It has 3 title fights. If the negotiations fall through and they don't end up going with this fight, it's still a stacked card because you got 2 title fights. So hopefully this fight gets made. I'm a little surprised. I was a little weary at first because people the fighters in the welterweight division love to talk. They love to tweet and say, sign the dotted line. You see Tyron Woodley, Leon Edwards, Michael Chiesa. Well, Michael Chiesa doesn't do it, but he's just there, so I just threw his name out there. Colby Covington, everybody says, sign the dotted line. Jorge Masvidal and Kamaru have been doing it to each other for the past 6 to 9 months. It's just like, it just kind of builds hype, helps with their brand, helps them make money, whatever. I'm not gonna fault them for it. But it seems like the negotiations for this are for real. And I did notice that in the past, all the fighters would just be tweeting and even replying to some fans. And Jorge hasn't really said much. I mean, he posted that picture that said his definition of game bread, which was pretty cool, pretty exciting. But it seems like he's being a little more quiet because he's actually spending his time negotiating. And I was surprised because this was originally going to be the main event for Fight Island. It was originally going to be Kamaru Usman and Jorge Masvidal for the welterweight strap. And then negotiations fell through. UFC moved on about a month ago because Jorge Masvidal was asking for more money than the UFC was offering him. And most people's response to this was kind of like, oh, either Jorge ducked Kamaru Usman or Jorge just has too big of a head. And that's kind of how I felt. I felt he has too big of a head. But I got a lot of respect for him. I mean, anybody who can fight in the UFC once or a million times, and he's fought a lot. He's fought a lot, not just in the UFC, for many other promotions from back in the Bodog days where he was fighting in backyards alongside Kimbo Slice. Like, this guy, he's a real fighter, and I don't fault him. I don't blame him at all for wanting to get some money in the bank, because who doesn't? I mean, getting punched in the face for years and years, as many times as he has, getting kicked in the leg, kicked in the body, elbowed in the stomach, elbowed in the back, all that stuff can get old. And if you're not making money for you, your future, your family, what the heck are you doing? So negotiations had fallen through before, and that was on like a full camp. Jorge turned it down. So the fact that he's negotiating for like 1 week out, for a 1 week short notice fight for the belt against someone as fearsome and as good, and kind of unmatched pretty much as Kamaru Usman. This is an exciting move, and it's pretty gangster for Street Jesus. I definitely can give him that. And I've said before, many times before, that I am not even close to the biggest Jorge Masvidal fan. Up until about like a week or two before the BMF fight, I was like, I wasn't interested in the fight. I wasn't going to watch it. And then all that USADA stuff went down. Jorge Masvidal gained my respect because he wasn't kicking Nate Diaz while he was down, jumping the gun, jumping the bandwagon, and assuming he was on steroids or whatever, or growth hormones, or any type of performance-enhancing drugs. And I gained a lot of respect for him. And then his performance in that fight against someone who is known as one of the toughest, one that has one of the best chins in the UFC, Nate Diaz, I gained more respect for him. I'm not going to say I'm a fan. I'll say I'm a fan. I'm a fan of him. He's an entertaining guy. He's got good boxing. But as far as if this matchup is made, whether it's on a full camp or not, I don't see Jorge Masvidal beating Kamaru Usman. I think if they fight 10 times, he might be able to beat him once, catch him maybe he'll beat him twice. 2 out of 10. So 20%. I would give him if they fought 10 times. I don't see... Kamaru Usman's never really been hurt. He got stunned a couple times by some of Colby's shots. He's never been nut dropped up until the Colby fight. He never lost a round. And he showed in his fight with Colby Covington, his last title defense, that he can stand and bang. And that's not even his best. It's not even the best thing he can do. And he carries his power through the rounds too. And Jorge Masvidal in the past is notorious for not being able to stop takedowns. Well, he's good at stopping takedowns. He's just not good at getting up from a takedown. We saw him just get completely demolished by Colby Covington in some grappling practice, American Top Team videos back when Colby was still with ATT. We saw Damian Maia wrestle the crap out of him. It's not a good matchup on paper for Jorge. It's kind of like Khabib and Conor, except Conor's more of a kickboxer rather than a regular boxer. But Jorge has good boxing. He's got good power. He's got good pressure. He likes to kick the body. We saw him hurt Nate Diaz and actually drop him with a body kick. UFC 244 for the BMF fight, BMF title. So I don't give him a lot. I don't give him really any chance at all coming off of 1 week. The only thing, the main thing that would play to his advantage though, obviously, is that, I mean, it's going to hurt him that he only has a week to prepare. But also, I'm sure Jorge has been training for this fight. He doesn't look chunky. He doesn't look like he's been eating pizza, drinking Modelo. What would play to his advantage is that Kamaru has been training for Gilbert Burns, who is a jiu-jitsu practitioner, and also he fights kind of a little bit like Jorge. Jorge doesn't press forward as much as Gilbert Burns does, though. So that would play towards Jorge's advantage. But that's really it. Like I've said in the past, Kamaru Usman is a huge person. He is a specimen. I'm not even sure how a guy his size, he looks like he's carved from marble, like stone, like a Greek statue. I don't know how a guy his size doesn't get tired. He just has some crazy genes, training techniques. If you ask Colby Covington, he takes EPO. Now that's not confirmed, and I'm not gonna say anything. Keep my mouth shut on that. But Kamaru Usman is a big guy. He's got a lot of power. He's really strong. We see him overpower people all the time. Every single opponent he's fought has just been completely overpowered, and they usually break, and they're just kind of there, just a punching bag for him. Someone as tough as RDA, he completely ragdolled him. He completely ragdolled Damian Maia, who's not a push-around. He completely ragdolled Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley for the longest, he was untouched in the welterweight division, and he's a wrestler. And we've never seen someone do what Kamaru Usman did to him, ever. Not even close. And that being said, seeing as how Jorge has struggled with wrestlers in the past, someone like Damian Maia, who's more of a finesse guy, I don't see it going well for a guy that's so powerful, so strong and big and imposing like Kamaru Usman. I'm not saying he doesn't have a chance, but I wouldn't bet my money. Just the fact that it's on short notice. Also, Jorge Masvidal has good endurance, but you could see going into the fourth round before the fight was stopped in UFC 244, he was beating the crap out of Nate. So that was probably why he was looking tired. But he was looking tired, and going up against a guy like Kamaru, who's going to keep coming, and he's going to tire you out probably more than Nate Diaz, and you're going to have to throw every single thing into him like you did to Nate Diaz, plus some, because Kamaru, like I said, he's never really been wobbled or dropped. It's not going to fly. Getting tired like that is not going to fly. And like I said, coming on short notice, who knows how his endurance is? Who knows how he's been training? Who knows the training situation at American Top Team? I'm excited about this fight, if it is made. If nothing is official yet, I did actually get trolled by the whole reason why I even got my mic and my laptop ready to do this podcast was because I saw a fake Brett Okamoto Twitter account that was very convincing that said that the fight was agreed to, and I got really excited, was messaging a bunch of my buddies, and then I noticed a bunch of people were commenting that they got fooled. So the fight has not been officially made. According to Ariel Helwani, just saw a tweet. He said that the talks are going in a positive direction, but there are some hurdles to go through, of course, like I had just said earlier. So if this fight happens, I think it'll be an exciting fight. I think no matter what, Jorge will be in a good spot, whether he wins, loses, or even there's a draw, whatever, the unlikely scenario with that. Jorge will get a lot of stock. He'll get more fans because he took this fight on short notice against the guy that most people don't want to fight for a title fight. He's already got the BMF belt, so he's popular, and he's also making more money. And if he wants to, when he loses, he can use the excuse that it was on short notice, maybe get a rematch, depending on how bad the beating is. And you never know. Jorge can always pull something crazy. He could rock Kamaru Usman with a hook, or he could catch him with a flying knee. I mean, anything's possible. But just being realistic and going off of the film study I've done on both fighters, I've seen every single one of their UFC fights and some of Jorge's fights before the UFC. I don't give him I'm not going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I think Kamaru is going to ragdoll him, and I honestly think he might finish him. I think he'll be able to finish him, maybe with ground and pound, or it will go to decision and it will just be a 50-44 or something insane. I take that back. I think it could be I think it could be 49-46 or 50-45. I don't see Jorge. I see Jorge throwing some fireworks and giving his best resistance early on, but I just think the Jorge train's going to get silenced. He's going to be humbled, and but either way, it's a win-win for Jorge. And it's also if Kamaru was to lose, it would suck, but winning and beating Jorge Masvidal, who a lot of people think is the biggest threat for him besides Colby Covington, that's a good thing. Of course, a title defense is going to add to. He can start building his legacy. So we'll see how this turns out. Fingers crossed. I'm not going to get too excited. I already got fooled once, but I'll be checking for some updates all day, and then put out on my podcast page or on my Twitter whenever I promote my podcast. I'll put out if there's any news, and we'll go from there. But either way, UFC 251 is going to be a banger. It's going to be it's a good stacked card. I'm looking forward to it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Hope you guys are as excited for UFC 251 and seeing Fight Island as I am. Stay tuned. It's only going to get better from here. And thank you.